My name is Jay Berman, and I welcome you to Interview with an Entrepreneur. Today is February 7th, 2024, episode 1. Today's guest is Mr. Sean Hancock, the owner and founder of Recycle Minds Improv, based in Garden City, Idaho. Welcome, Sean. How are you?
Good, Jay. Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Well, listen, thank you so much for helping me launch my channel today. So let's jump right in by telling our audience, let's start off with your background, where you're from, where you grew up.
Sure. Yeah, I'm from Montana, and late in a place where you grow up slow and fast at the same time, living on a ranch. I found out that I had a real knack for acting and theater and then later improv comedy while doing a show that my brother, who's a senior, was the lead role in, and my sister, who's 3 years older than me, was like, you should try out. I was a freshman, he was a senior, and kind of the star athlete, homecoming king, that kind of thing. And I was just like, sure, I was kind of the funny kid in class, and I was like, yeah, all right, I'll try out for this play. And the response that I got from people surprised. I just had people who were like, you have to continue doing this acting thing. One teacher was like, if you don't continue doing this, I'll eat my hat, which I thought was really weird. And apparently that's a phrase. But so it took my sister seeing something in me to inspire me or encourage me to do acting, which then led to me doing comedy, particularly improvisational comedy, that led me down to Los Angeles, California, where I studied the Groundling School of Improv, Upright Citizens Brigade. I performed with Comedy Sports in Idaho, and then I started teaching for an organization called Monkey Butler Comedy out of LA. I had no interest in teaching, and I basically was begged to do it. And so when I did, I found out that when you teach, you learn twice, and that opened up doors for me to start teaching, and that led me to Europe. And on my journey of yes-anding, that's where I met my now wife, Colleen. She's from New Jersey, but we both met in Spain. So just kind of a wild run of discoveries, which is very similar to the nature of improv, of yes-anding, making other people look good, responding to the last thing. And so in 2012, I moved back to Idaho, and in 2012, my wife and I started Recycled Minds Comedy as a training center, started offering classes. So we specialize in 3 things. We do classes, shows, and corporate training. So that's where I get to come alongside businesses and use these really incredible and powerful tools of improv comedy in the workplace, bringing more humor and humanity in that work environment. But yeah, it all started for me just being a kid out of Montana who found a discovery for acting. So
Nice. So how did you start your business?
I started by first offering free classes on improv. I hit up the local comedy club, and I was like, hey, is there a day of the week that you don't have anything going on that I could just use the space for free and teach people some comedy classes? And they're like, yeah, you can do Tuesday evenings. So I was like, okay, great. So they're like, yeah, encourage people to have a drink and you can teach people how to do comedy. I was like, awesome. So for 3 Tuesdays in a row, I sent out this thing on Facebook, and I was like, hey, I'm going to do these free improv classes for those of you who want to learn. I'm just coming back from Los Angeles, and, just put the word out. And I had like half a dozen people show up and stick around for these comedy classes that I was teaching. And then at the end of those 3 free classes, I said, hey, I'm going to do a class of 8 weeks. If you want to jump in, it cost, I think it was $60 at the time. And now classes are like $225, $250. But it was like $60 at the time. I was like, hey, if you want to continue doing this, I'm going to be teaching for 8 weeks. It's only $60 if you want to sign up. And so everybody wanted to keep on going. So I had my first like 6 students afterwards, and I had another space that was offered to me for free, so I had no overhead, and I was just teaching people improv, and that's how it started for me as far as teaching classes go. And then I was gigging on the side, which is like, doing whether it was comedy or I ended up getting a part-time job hosting trivia nights. So yeah, I started doing that for a while until it became more of a full-time thing. So that's how it started for me, though. Just offered free stuff.
Nice. So why did you start your business? So many people start their business. Usually the biggest reason is, well, I want to be my own boss. I want to make a lot of money. That's usually typical. But in your particular case, why did you start your business?
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't mean to. And what I mean by that is I loved improv. I loved acting. And I originally wanted to just move to LA and have someone discover me and be like, that's the guy we've been looking for this entire time. Cast him in a big movie and set him up for life. That didn't end up happening. So just by teaching and performing, I just loved it. So it was something I was going to do for free because I just loved it. And seeing that other people were hungry to learn, and I was also wanting to play more with people who could do long form. So I was like, okay, well, I could teach people how to do it, and I can do it the best possible way that I can surmise. So what's a good price point? So I just kind of put a price point together and was like, I'm going to just teach them everything that I've learned from these different schools that I've been so grateful and blessed to learn from. So that's how I decided to make it a business. Is like I wanted to do it more often, and I felt like I could help people to learn how to do it. So that's like I said, I kind of stumbled into it. I didn't have a business plan at the time. I didn't know my return on investment, what my ROI was going to be. I didn't strategize. I was just like, this is so fun. I want to bring more fun to people, and I want to teach people how to do it too, because I want to play with more people. So that's where it started. And then now where it's at now, it is very different from its humble beginnings. So.
Well, my son Saul takes your classes and he is having a blast. He absolutely loves it. And, to his credit, he's paying for it.
Yeah.
So when I was talking to him about starting this channel, he says, "Oh, you got to interview Sean." I was like, "Yeah, he would be great, particularly for my first episode." So at the time that you were starting this business, did you have any like mentors or role models or advisors when you started? Did you have any help?
Not really, not at the time. I mean, I had role models in the comedy world who I aspired to be like, but it wasn't until we started like putting the plane together. It's like, or putting the plane together while it's taking off, that I started reading books on people who are developing in business, or listening to podcasts of like how I built this, And so I started asking myself the question, okay, what does it look like to be a business owner? What does it look like to really foster and care for my people, the people that are taking classes from me? What does that really look like? What am I missing? So I started asking myself a bunch of questions, and I started studying people like Ed Milet, who is an incredibly successful business guy, who he's kind of in that vein of like Tony Robbins. He's a motivational speaker and wildly successful in business and real estate. And he just had a podcast that I just loved, and did a really good job of breaking down vision and purpose and laser focus. And so I decided to listen to a 48-minute podcast of his, and decided I'm going to practice everything that he just lined out. He essentially just was like, here's what I would do. if I were doing a business model, this is what I want you to do. And so I just did the exercise. I listened to the podcast. I brought my wife in. I was like, you got to listen to this. And we listened to it. And then I said, I want to apply these principles that he gave to us. And in so doing, in about 3 months' time, we made our first 6 figures. So it was, that's when it struck me. There's something to being a business person. There's something to being an entrepreneur, to help people by giving them great value and making money along the way while you're benefiting other people with incredible value. So yeah, so Ed Milet is probably at the top of my list as far as what got me started. And Zig Ziglar is even a person who had influenced him, and Tony Robbins. And then I picked up this book written by a Jewish rabbi, just because there's a lot of incredible Jewish business people who are very successful. So I was like, what are they doing that I don't know? So I had heard that even in other countries, people were just consuming books. So I picked up a book by Rabbi Daniel Lapin, Business Secrets from the Bible. And I just started reading it and applying it and thinking like, okay, how can I serve people? How many people do I want to actually serve or take care of? And I started learning these principles, like my success or our success is directly tied to the people we serve and how well we serve them, right? For example, Amazon, like it or not, for how big they are, I bet you everyone had some sort of experience with Amazon, whether they've purchased something online or whether they have a friend or a neighbor or relative that works for them, driving vans, delivering for them, So they are serving people well. And we live in a unique time where we're set up more today better than kings were 100 years ago, where if I want something, I hit a button or I speak it out to Siri or my, through my phone, and it can get ordered and delivered to my house. And I don't even know who brought it to me. It's just like, I want it. Here it is. Like, kings didn't have it so good. So, anyways, so that's pretty wild. And what a wild time we are in to be entrepreneurs.
I'll list that book on your episode from Daniel Lepman. Actually, I read it. I agree with you. It's a great book.
Nice.
Now, how did you set your business apart from competitors in your industry, or excuse me, actually in this case, the Boise area? I mean, do you even have competitors, or who do you consider your competitors? That's always a difficult question to like, okay, who are my competitors, particularly because your business is so rare and unique.
Yeah, there was only one other company in town that was teaching people improv comedy, and it was pretty unique and kind of niche to this particular format of improv. So my school of thought, their school of thought was, we're not teaching improv, we're teaching this form of improv. And for me, I wanted to teach improv and teach it really well. And I didn't care as much for who was coming through our doors, as long as they were able to abide by the principles of making other people look good. And my job was just to care for people. So the thing that set us apart is, ironically, we weren't as niche as this other company. And that particular company is franchised. They're huge. They're everywhere. And we've done well here in Boise, I think, because and I'm not going to say the name of the company. I have a lot of friends that do things with them, and some of them, they even teach our classes. There's a lot of crossover, but they've had a lot of ups and downs, mainly because of management and how they ran things, and most importantly, like how they treated people. And while things have changed now, and while they're under new management, which is really great. At the time, like, people were just getting hurt and jaded and were leaving, and some of them were coming to us. or they were just like getting burned out completely as far as the improvisers go. So, so I think for us, it was, how can I really care for people who are coming through our doors as best I can. And then we're also at a time being compared to a comedy club, which Boise only had one comedy club. And then when COVID happened, it didn't even have a comedy club. And the one it did have doesn't exist anymore as a comedy club. So while we don't consider ourselves a comedy club, we do shows. So people will say, oh yeah, we're going to the improv comedy club, Recycled Minds. And how we compare differently to that is we don't do stand-up very often. We do storytelling and we do improv comedy. And we're also clean. So we're family friendly on top of it, which the comedy club wasn't. They were what in the comedy world is considered blue. But it's like you can profanities, politics, religion, you know, all sorts of stuff can be shared from the stage, regardless of like language or being appropriate. But as for us, we boxed ourselves in, or I should say, didn't box ourselves in. We gave ourselves a particular canvas to create on, and I think in so doing allowed for us to hone in our brand, our target market, in a way that allowed us to niche down of like, okay, we're going to do highbrow, clean comedy. So someone could come here with their 9-year-old, and the 9-year-old's going to enjoy the physical comedy and pay attention, but the adult is going to enjoy the intelligent humor, and they'll get maybe the innuendos that aren't crude or to the point where their 8-year-old's like, what does that mean, daddy? Or something like that. So, so yeah, so that's kind of, I guess what you could say, what set us apart was the clean comedy route that we were doing, and also the classes, what we were teaching, and the different levels that we offer.
Now, how did you market your business when it was a new brand? I mean, how did you come up with the name Recycled Minds? How would you come up with that name for a business? I mean, for what you do?
Yeah, I was performing in Summer Stock Theater in Ohio at the time. I was doing a show in Chillicothe called Tecumseh, and I was just couldn't wait to get back to Boise to start doing improv. And I was trying to do it on the mountain with some of the actors in Chillicothe, but none of them really had much improv background, and they were like, you know, and I just would go to bed at night thinking like, what would be a really cool name for an improv comedy company or a troupe at the time, I think even at that point. And I love the idea of taking an idea from an audience member and transforming it and utilizing it. And so that idea of like recycling an idea, taking a single idea, and then the idea of mind, like Recycled Minds. It's improv is so creative, it's so on the fly, it's so in the moment. And then also to be a participant in improv, you have to be willing to listen and let your mind be stretched. So Recycled Minds just popped into my head. Almost as if like it wasn't my idea. It was just like, poof, it just hit me. And I was like, oh yeah, that'd be a cool name, Recycled Minds. So was always the name that when I came back to Boise, the comedy company would be called, or the troupe at the time. I started as an improv troupe. And then after being here in Boise in 2001, 2002, for a couple of years, just doing like comedy shows and down on Chinden at a random bar, I decided to go to LA and get some training and spend about 5 to 7 years in Los Angeles, and just knowledge, and was like, okay, let's go back to Boise. And opportunity led for me to do improv here. And I was like, okay. A friend of mine who I was doing a duo comedy show with was like, dude, Recycled Minds, that was such a cool name. We should bring that back. And I was like, yeah, okay. So that kind of unearthed bringing back Recycled Minds.
And what did you do to market your brand in the beginning?
Oh,
Because it's usually a big challenge for people. It's like, okay, I'm starting this business, but how do I get people to know that I'm even out there, that I'm aware that this is what I offer people?
yeah. Thank you. I almost forgot that second part of the question. Um, yeah, it started word of mouth for me. And like I said, when I started doing classes, I posted on Facebook and just started trying to get the word out that way, telling people about it. Like, hey, we're gonna be offering classes. And at some point, I just started printing up flyers at like the local print shop on like colored cardstock, just so I could cut them out and put them on people's windshields at the movie theater. So very kind of grassroots and guerrilla marketing, so to speak, which is another book that I ended up picking up. But going to places, doing like some improv on the street and entertaining people as they're walking by for a park or a fair or the market. And as a crowd would gather, we'd make an announcement for our next show, hand out flyers, that kind of thing. So it was very guerrilla-esque as far as like handing out flyers, word of mouth. Now, I mean, that's how we started. And then now today, Google has been really great for us. We advertise in the newspaper, and there's a lot of free channels that you can submit to local newspapers of like press releases that you want to do for upcoming shows or classes. And so we just started hitting all the channels that we could to get the word out as much as possible. I kept a blog for a time, and so having different blogs or interviews or even pieces like this that are shareable, just started sharing things as much as possible, trying to get them in front of as many eyes as possible, getting in magazines and newspapers. There was a comedy festival coming to town, being on one of the front pages or whatever, anything like that can help you. So, but it started with just like, hey, we're going to do a show. Let everybody know. Tell your friends.
So
So,
what is the hardest part of being an entrepreneur?
yeah, the
What do
hardest
you
part.
find the most, yeah, what do you find like the most challenging, the most, the real challenges, running your own business?
Yeah, that's such a good question, Jay. One of the greatest challenges of being an entrepreneur is for me, it was having to overcome people pleasing and just knowing that you can't please everybody all the time. You're going to get hate from some people because you're doing something unique or you're putting yourself out there. It just happens. Especially if you're branching out or you have a competitive edge or a nature, you might find that there's like a crab mentality, and I've seen this in the performance space or in the comedy space. If someone's starting to rise, other people will try to bring them down, and it's not a positive kind of environment. So you have to be able to rise above that. Otherwise, if you're listening to the noise, you'll just end up taking your seat. And that's just from a comedy aspect of like you're a rising comedian or something like this. But another thing I've discovered in the teaching space is dealing with humans. You're wanting to help people as much as possible, and every once in a while, someone will be hurt or offended by something that was said in a show, or maybe they're not getting stage time because they're just not stage ready yet, but they don't want to hear it. So they'll just take offense to it. So you have to deal with hurting people's feelings at times. Um, Making money, it might keep you up at night of like, man, how are we going to pay X, Y, and Z? How are we going to pay for the space or whatever it might be? And those are questions that we had, especially early on, where we just decided to get a place that was as cheap as possible, that we were willing to stay in, just so we could make money and learn how to do that well. So little things now, the things that are keeping us up now are like solidifying our vision for the future, our next 5-10 years, and dialing in that vision to the point where it's oozing out of us. Our vision, our mission is spilling out of us in the classroom, on the stage, in the corporate level. Our teachers are sharing our vision. We're bringing our team of people so close to us that it's getting on them. That's where we're at right now, of like, we need to bring in people closer to us so that the vision is part of their heartbeat. It's like, yeah, just making sure that our heartbeat is in rhythm with our people's, especially those who are teaching.
Well, you actually might have already answered this question. What is your favorite part of being an entrepreneur?
Yeah, my favorite part, it's funny. I was just talking to one of my instructors yesterday, just checking in. They're like midway through their classes, and I'm like, "Hey, how's it going?" And she started sharing with me breakthroughs in the 101, the Joy of Improv class that she's teaching. And I'm smiling on the other end of the phone because I know what it's like to have people have breakthrough. And to be honest with you, like, I think that is still to this day the thing that I absolutely love about being an entrepreneur, is seeing someone have breakthrough, whether that's a student who didn't have the confidence until they took our class. They didn't have the confidence until week 4, where they're doing these exercises with these people who were strangers before they walked into the room. And now all of a sudden they have more confident. They're more confident in their own skin, people getting up on stage in front of an audience and having the confidence to invest with their fellow improvisers to give the audience an opportunity to laugh. Like, I love that. I love that kind of breakthrough, working with companies and seeing them have a mind shift breakthrough. Maybe it's a CFO who addresses their people and realize, like, hey guys, I was blaming you and I realized it was me. Just like those kind of mind shifts are so good. And I love seeing that happen.
Well, I definitely agree with you because, like I said, my son Saul takes your classes, and he loves being part of a group of people where nobody's a star. Everybody has kind of like equal time, but they can still be themselves, and being part of a team, not so much a group, actually a team, because everybody has different backgrounds, the whole, diversity and things like that. But because I mean, he's 19, and then but he's with people who are like in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. So everybody comes with a different perspective depending on where their life is at, and being able to create a show is very it's a wonderful creative process for him. I mean, he's been doing it since he was a kid. He's done talent shows. He worked for Musical Theater of Idaho for a number of years, and he really enjoys that part of learning how to be creative, how to be funny with a team. Like, he's not interested in being a star, and it's nice that you do offer that to him, and it's helped him be a little bit more assertive and have a little bit more confidence in himself. So there's a lot of benefits to not only learning how to be funny. Trust me, at home he's not a comedian. He's just just a regular 19-year-old. When he is in your shows, in his classes, he takes it very serious. He's very professional. He does not want to be late. He has to stay late. He treats it like it's a career, like it's a job. It's very, very cool. So let's talk about employees. But I think in your situation, when we talked last week, you actually hire contractors. So what is the difference between an employee and a contractor? And why did you go to the contractor route? And what do you look for in a contractor? I mean, do you look for work experience, work ethic? I mean, what's really important to you? Do you look for education? Those type of things. I mean, what's, if you can just maybe summarize the process of, when you quote hire somebody as either a contractor or I guess or an employee. No, but right? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We hire independent contractors, and for where we currently are in our business model, that just seems to be the simple approach. And so, and that's why we're currently doing it. I could see that changing in the near future, down the road. But yeah, what we look for, and this would be the same for independent contractors or employees. We have this saying that we've adopted from Dutch Bros, which is a really kind of famous or very popular coffee place here in Boise in the Treasure Valley. And they have this saying, anyone can make a good cup of coffee. Not everyone can love people well. And so they look for people who can love people well, who can just take care of people, who really listen well. And so that's what we look for in our instructors. We look for people who can love people well, who can care for a group of people that maybe they don't have their same background. They don't have their same philosophy on life or politics or faith or whatever that might be, but they can see them as humans, ask them like, why are you taking a class? And try to meet them where they're at and get them where they want to go. So that's what we look for. And we try to foster that kind of mentality. We praise those instructors that are doing, we try to praise more of the activity that we want, right? Those people who are humble, who are showing up on time or early, prepping their class, check the bathrooms, like make sure the bathrooms are clean before their students come in. And then we praise them and we give awards to them. And other people who are wanting to be instructors, they see that. And so they start thinking like, oh, that's what I need to be in order to be an instructor. I need to be willing to show up and clean up and help people out. Okay. Am I that kind of person? If not, then they're not going to be one of our independent contractors. But if that's something they're going to want to do, our eyes are looking for those kind of people. So that's what it is for us, just looking for people who care for people well.
Now, what do you consider your competitive advantage? In other words, what do you do better than other people in your industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what's funny is I will sometimes hire our independent contractors that are actually part of another group to sub for us or to even teach for us, just because they're good and they treat people well. And what I've noticed is if they're wanting some of their students to get further training, they'll send them to us, because we don't teach a specific style of improv. We teach many styles of improv. We teach many different formats of improv. So short form, like the show Whose Line Is It Anyways, that's like, hey, we're going to play this game called Freeze Tag, and it plays like this. And then we do that game that we just explained. So that's short form. We teach how to do that. We teach different games. We teach different long forms, which is like taking a suggestion from an audience member and then doing an entire half hour or 45-minute show or hour show. Not a lot of schools of improv, especially here in the Treasure Valley or Magic Valley, teach some of those specific forms. So I think that's the separator for us, where we have people from Arco and Twin Falls who are driving out here to take a class once a week. It's wild. Yeah, I think that's the separator for us. And then we give opportunities to perform every 8 weeks. And then now we're developing troops. So people who've been with us, who've taken multiple, now have an opportunity to perform once a month or every other month. We just went and shot some specials down in Utah for Dry Bar Unscripted. So having improvisers who now have comedy specials coming out that people can watch and they can send around the country or around the world to watch their Dry Bar Unscripted comedy specials, that's pretty unique and special too. That, and we do corporate training, and not a lot of our competitors are doing that, and maybe not at the level that we're doing it. So far, we've traveled to 10 different cities, and I've been to 12 countries teaching or performing, and this unique corporate training has been really, really cool. And finally, the last thing is we find that one hand washes the other. So when we're doing a comedy show, someone's like, oh man, I want to take a class, or we'll share from the stage at a comedy show that we offer corporate training. So the show is a platform for classes and our corporate training. And then when I go in to do corporate training, I might give some of those people some free tickets to come to a show so that they can have a laugh and have more camaraderie with their team for bonding. And so then they'll get another aspect or another avenue. And some of those people might end up taking a class because they had so much fun in the training that I did with them. They're like, yeah, I want to do 8 weeks of this. I need this in my life. I need more laughter in my life. So I think that's been a unique separator for us as well.
So what do you think aspiring entrepreneurs, what kind of qualities should they have for an aspiring entrepreneur?
Yeah. Aspiring entrepreneurs, I think, should be resilient and humble. And I think finding people who are wiser than them, who've been down the road, who can tell them and be willing to take, like, no, that's a bad idea. You know what I mean? Because that, like, at least you're hearing it, right? And I think that we do better in the bowling game of life when we have bumpers in the gutters, you know, to keep us on the right path, knocking down the targets that we want to line up with. So I think being humble, being hungry, asking yourself, why do I want to do this? And what am I doing different that the guy down the street's not doing, you know? So yeah, am I serving people? This is actually helping people. I think some people are like, hey, I want to do this thing, and nobody's asking for it. So are people wanting it? Now, the Ford motor car, I think, is a really great example. Like when Henry Ford wanted to come up with a car, no one was asking for it at the time. They just wanted a faster horse. But the point is, like, he was also a futurist, and he was creating an entirely new product that was paving a way for an entire new generation of travel. He was upsetting an industry, right? And so that is different. And so those are like, please don't hear what I'm not saying. What I'm saying is, like, is what I'm going to offer to people going to really benefit them, going to really help them? And can I do it at a price that people are willing to pay? Sorry, I kind of went off there.
No, this is great. I mean, you know, for my entrepreneurship students, I tell them, start off with the idea that what is it that you can make better? Because there are so many entrepreneurship books who say, okay, find a problem to solve. Well, you mentioned Henry Ford. I mean, most people did not see transportation as a problem. I mean, if he didn't invent the car, would we still have the horse and buggy, and we would be still riding on horses? Probably yes, because we had to wait for somebody who said, you know what, I can do better. And we have the technology to do better. The same thing with Amazon.com. I mean, they started up selling books. What's the big deal? Well, because the only way to buy books before Amazon came around was, you know, you had to go to like a Barnes and Noble. You had to go to a bookstore, and most of those bookstores in big cities. Now, they probably were some companies that had catalogs, but he just invented a better way to buy books. And of course, you know, the rest is history. So it's not so much solving a problem I mean, even with the iPhone, I mean, we still be having landlines, which of course my children never experienced. They have no idea what I'm talking about. But I grew up with landlines.
Me
They
too.
only know about landlines because they watched I Love Lucy when they were little. And they were like, where's the cell phone? It's like, this is the 1950s. And so people were like, oh, okay, this is the way it is. And, you know, Steve Jobs said, no, there's got to be a better way to have a phone. There's got to be a better way to communicate. So it's not so much solving a problem that I try to teach my students. I call the concept betterness. I just invented that a couple weeks ago. So when you're writing your business plan, it's like, okay, great. You have all these benefits, you have all these features, these are the services you will provide. But how are you better than your competitors? And pick your three most difficult competitors. What is it they're offering? And can you do better and maybe charge more because you are better? It's something to think about. Last question. What advice can you give to an aspiring entrepreneur? I know that's a very vague, general question, but what advice would you give somebody who wants to start their own business?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who get caught up in perfectionism and trying to get their idea just right before they even launch something. And then they might not end up doing it at all in the first place. And sometimes it takes just risk of just putting yourself out there. Like you need to make sure, like, am I going to ruin myself if I do this? Or is this something that is just like burning up inside me that I just feel like I need to do, I really want to do to help people? Do it. Find a way to do it. Talk to other people who are further down the road and just say, hey, I want to do this, and share with them, and then go and do it. That's what I would say for someone who's wanting to do something. You'll learn along the way. I mean, I was listening to this one entrepreneur, and they said better than any business class for me was just doing it, was just doing something. I remember when I was a kid in Montana, my dog ended up having puppies, and they were like the cutest puppies you'd ever seen. And they were all from a cow dog, a cattle dog. And my mom was like, these puppies have got to go. You got to get rid of them. I don't care how, just like, you got to get rid of them. So we had a rodeo coming up. And so I went to the rodeo, and I had a box. And as people were coming into the rodeo, I had a box that just said puppies for sale. And the box was like not so tall. The puppies were like hanging out over the box. Like they were kind of self-advertising for themselves. And I sold every single one of those dogs at the rodeo and just had a stack of cash. And my brother and sister, who are older than me, are like, where did you get all of that? And I'm just like, I think I'm going to go into the dog breeding business. It was just a really fun taste as an entrepreneur of giving something that people wanted, and they didn't know they wanted a puppy until they got to see how cute it was. So yeah, just do it.
Anything else that you can provide our audience? Any last words? What do you think? Open-ended.
Yeah, so as you said that, something popped into my mind, and this is a principle of improv. Tina Fey, who is on SNL, she has 4 principles of improv. Listen, yes, and make statements. And that could be surmises, like bold choices. And then finally, there's no mistakes, only opportunities. And I think that if you are willing to do something, you're learning. Even if like I invest in something and it fails, I learned something. And some of the most successful business people I know have crazy stories of like losing millions, but they got it all back. And it reminds me of, I think it was Henry Ford who said, you could take all of my buildings, you could burn them to the ground and take everything that I have, but give me my workers. And in 5 years, I'll build everything back up to what I had. And just that idea of an entrepreneur, because he learned so much, he learned the power of making wealth, the power of making money and benefiting his people along the way. I think it was wild. So yeah, I'll leave you with that.
Well, excellent, Sean. Well, listen, thank you very much for being my first interviewee. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Listen, God bless you and your family, and much success to you. And I'm sure my son will be seeing you shortly. He's only on level 4. He does want to do. He wants to do level 5 and level
Nice.
6. So
Yes.
thank you very much for being such an important part of his life.
Honored, Jay. Yeah. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, I'll be seeing you, Sean. You take care. Be good.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Thank you.